Hi all, if you're a returning viewer, welcome back. If you are new, welcome. My name is Amira and my channel is all about trying new makeup, talking about new makeup, but also finding new and exciting ways to be inspired by the makeup you already own. If that sounds good to you, I hope you will consider subscribing, and if you enjoyed today's video, hitting the like button. Today guys, we are continuing on with my declutter series, and as you can see, it is time, my friends. We are now in the thick of it. We are now in the video section, this area of a declutter series that I think everyone waits for and is excited for, and that is the eyeshadow palettes. So yes, I have a ton of eyeshadow palettes in front of me. This is not all of my collection. I have decided I'm going to do this eyeshadow palette declutter in two sections. So this is going to be the first section, and yeah, let's get into it. All right, guys. So I have so much in front of me and I don't know where to begin. Actually, yeah, I do. So I'm going to move some things out of the way and try not to drop them on the floor. Okay guys, so this is what we're going to work on first. We are going to work on my ABH palette. So let's start off with my Soft Glam, because my Soft Glam is currently in my February makeup capsule. However, the reason why I decided to put it in this month's capsule is because I plan on decluttering it after the end of the month. I've had it for a while. It's old. I've gotten a ton of use out of it, as you can see. It's very well loved, and so I just wanted to get like a last hurrah with this before I declutter it. I might eventually repurchase this. I haven't decided yet. I do really love this palette, and it still performs quite well, but I'm just sort of ready to get like a fresh one. If I really, really want it, I'll get a fresh one. But yeah, this has been in my collection for a while, really well loved, and yeah, so this will be going at the end of the month. Not today, but the end of the month. Next up are the two Anastasia palettes that are the newest to my collection, and the newest that I believe that they released. So first I have the Nouveau palette and the Rose Metals palette. The Nouveau palette, and the plastic here, let me move that out of the way. The Nouveau palette I will be keeping. I really enjoy this palette. I've gotten a lot of use out of it and a lot of enjoyment out of it, and I've gotten dark shadow in my purple. Darn it. But yes, I really enjoy this palette. I enjoyed the formula, so I will be keeping this. However, I am on the fence about Rose Metals. Now, Rose Metals is a beautiful palette. However, I have used this maybe 3 times and I haven't reached for it since then. I like the metallics in this, but the mattes are pretty blah. Like this shade, Nova and Nocturne are beautiful. Haze is beautiful. Element is beautiful. But the rest of these tones, I'm just kind of, they're not all that interesting. And these aren't necessarily unique enough for me to justify keeping the entire palette. So I think I'm actually going to declutter this one. Wild, I know. Next up is Norvina. Now this is an OG palette, but it actually isn't that OG for me. This I purchased not that long ago, guys. I purchased this, I believe, in either late 2021, late 2021, so like fall of 2021. So I haven't actually had this for that long, and as you can see, it's been well loved. I really like this palette. I don't know why I waited so long to grab it, but this is a beautiful palette, and I'm not decluttering it. I just, letting you know that even though this is an older palette, it's not that old for me. Sultry. Sultry goes nowhere. It's beautiful. It's stunning. She is the moment. This is probably their best palette that they've done as far as like overall quality. And I feel like, I don't know why they made this limited edition. This should have been permanent. Riviera. This has survived so many declutters, and I just don't think it's going to survive this one. Really, the only two shades in here that I love are Yacht and Sails. Literally, like this gold is stunning. It's an amazing white, but the rest of these I just don't care about. And I'm like, why am I holding onto this palette for these two shades? Like I have a million golds. I can find another gold that I love just as much. So yeah, it goes. Next up is the Anastasia Jackie Aina palette. I loved this palette when it first came out, and I did get a decent amount of use out of it. As you can see, I never use the brushes in these palettes. I either throw them away or they just don't get touched because these brushes are trash. But this for me is a bit of like makeup history in a way. It's like, you know, a specific moment in time. And I actually thought this was a fantastic palette, like Wigglies and Sponsored, Dollars, Lituation. Lituation is so stunning. I like the metallics in here far more than I like the mattes, although the mattes they work really well. And I think this is when ABH kind of tweaked their formula a bit, and it worked so well. And I think that was because they were working with a creator of color who was looking for a little bit more punch with the bolder tones. So yeah, I'm not gonna get rid of this. I don't reach for it as much, but I can't. I can't. And I'm in the same situation when it comes to Prism. This is a palette that I have actually used. I do actually enjoy, but I just don't reach for it as much anymore. But it's one of those palettes that it's just like, where would you find this again? You know, this is such a moment. This came out right after Subculture. And I think had Subculture not had the controversy that it had, this one probably would have done better. I really like this palette. I haven't used it in a while, but I do really love it. And I was asking myself as I sat down and I grabbed my ABH palettes if I was ready to do away with it, to be parted from it. And at least for now, no. I am not. Can you see? This is one thing I don't. If you have like a cat or anything with these, like any pet, this velvet was just not the biz. Subculture! I don't know, guys. Again, it's the same situation I have with Prism. It's a part of makeup history. I don't think I can part from it. Not yet, anyway. I might feel differently in 6 months, but for now, I'm happy. Like, I'm decluttered 3 of my ABH palettes so far, and I feel like that's decent because I was one of those people that collected ABH palettes, and at one point I did almost all of them, with the exception of maybe the Mario, because that was before I had started really getting into eyeshadows. So for me to declutter 3, I feel accomplished with that. Now we're getting into these, and here's my thing with these. This is the first one. This is the ABH Norvina Volume 1. Which looks like this. Barely used. I think I'm gonna do away with this one. I don't use it. It's pretty, but I just don't use it, and I don't need it. Gosh, that green looks really pretty though, doesn't it? Anyway, close your eyes, Amira. You don't even use that. I'm like, oh, it's got a green. This is what's so funny about this palette is I've used this palette, and for some reason my eye has never caught onto this green. How is that possible? How is that possible? Is it perhaps because this palette is so chaotic and there's so many purples that it kind of blasts the eye and that green just gets lost in the shuffle? I'm thinking that's why. But yeah, this is one that I will do away with. Look at me. Boom. This is I believe this is volume 4. Yeah, let's go in order. Let's do volume, well, it's the order of what I own. Because I don't own volume 2, which is the blue one, but I do own volume 3. I don't know, guys. Should I do away with this? I don't know. This palette I've used this palette actually quite a bit, specifically for like Halloween looks and things like that. Like, this palette has come in clutch for me so many times, so that's why I'm a little bit like but at the same time, these are not shades that I wear all the time. You know, this is not a palette that I'm like reaching, oh, let me go grab that palette, it's just not that palette, you know. And yeah, I feel like I'm going to let it go. It's still available if I absolutely am like, oh my God, I can't believe I let that go. What was I thinking? Then I can always repurchase it, but I don't think that's what's going to happen. So I think I'm going to let it go. Wow. Okay, I was not expecting to do that, but I'm like, And now we're down to volume 4, which looks like this. And this is the one that I've probably gotten the most use out of. And this one, I think I'm gonna let it go, guys. I'm looking at you. I got really quiet there, and it's because I'm looking at it and I'm trying to decide if this is something that I need in my collection. Now, I did use this palette I think at the end of 2021. And I use this a lot to dupe some shades that I, you know, in the Huda Beauty Rose Quartz palette. And this palette, honestly, all of these ABH palettes, if you're ever like trying, they're perfect palettes if you're just trying to dupe other palettes, because there's so many shades and so many tones and so many textures that you can do it. And I was able to dupe a lot of Rose Quartz with this palette and a couple of other palettes, like easily. So in that sense, it's interesting. But again, I haven't used this in ages and I don't think about it. So I'm gonna get rid of it. Whoa, look at me. Oh my God. I got rid of those, guys. Whoa, I feel a little dizzy. Oh no. Next, let's go on to my Juvia's Place. Well, next let's go on to my Juvia's Place. So here are my Juvia's Place palettes. Now, I did a pretty big Juvia's Place declutter. Not my last declutter eyeshadow palette, maybe the declutter before that, and then I had done one before that, before I'd even started my channel. So I have been slowly whittling down my Juvia's Place collection, and I've gotten it to a place where I'm pretty happy with it, but I do want to revisit a couple of things here and see if I still want to keep them. So mainly this one here, which is the Violets palette. This is a beautiful palette. I have used it. I've used it a handful of times. It's beautiful. The formula is great, but this and another purple palette that's gonna come up, I'm gonna probably have to decide between those two palettes. So this one is on the chopping block, but when I get to that other palette, we'll compare, we'll talk it out, and I will see which one I will be keeping. So this one is on the chopping block, but it is not official. My Chocolates palette, I really like this palette. I do feel like I'm missing like one more shade. These are both dark tone browns, but this one is cool tone and this one is warm tone. I honestly wish that I had a shade that was like this shade, but a little, like instead of this one, I wish we had like one that was this shade, but like half a shade lighter. I don't use this shade. I use these shades here. I never use that one. So in that sense, this is not my perfect like little chocolate mini palette, but I do enjoy using this. Do I need it? I don't know. I feel like I'm getting rid of my soft glam, and I do have a couple of other neutral, like, you know, brownie toned palettes. So I kind of want to do the same thing that I'm doing with the Violets and revisit with this and see if I need it, and sort of compare it to a couple of the other more like brown leaning palettes that I have and make the decision from there. This is my Nomad palette. This isn't going anywhere. I love this palette. It's beautiful. This is like such a great color story. These shades here, stunning. I don't use these very often except for this one. This is an orange with a metallic, and I'm trying not to swatch, but this is like an orange with glitter in it. My issue with this is that once you apply it to the eye, the glitter just kind of disappears. It's like one of those satin shades that like the glitter just kind of, I wish they had just made this, you know. And I think the reason why they did this is to it was more, what am I trying to say? It is more to do with the formulation than the finish. Oftentimes when you see mattes like this, it is actually to help them be more blendable on the eye, which I think is the issue with this one. It's just that the shimmer that you see kind of is like it's kind of like false advertising, because I was like, oh my God, that's a beautiful yellow metallic. It's not. It's a matte with a little bit of shimmer that disappears once you blend it out. But the rest of this palette, I think it's stunning, and I think it's a beautiful palette, and I'm gonna keep it. Then of course, the one, the only, the much sought after, the much loved Try palette, not going anywhere. This palette is stunning. It's beautiful. It's one of those color stories to me that is like, you know, those color stories that are like quintessential color stories. Like this is what this is to me. This color story, they have yet to be able to reach. Juvia's Place hasn't topped itself with this color story. And honestly, I feel like this is one of the more curated color stories that they've had. They're not, I think Nomad is a really beautiful color story as well, but I don't feel, when I look at Juvia's Place palettes, I honestly don't see a lot of curation as far as color story, at least in my mind, in my aesthetic. There's a slight, you know, color story vibe, a whiff of a vibe, a whiff of a color story usually. But this one for me is the first one that they've done that was like an actual strong color story with a point of view. So yeah, I love this palette. Another one that I felt like had a strong point of view is the Deuce palette, which you can't get anymore, and it's beautiful. And because you can't get it anymore, I kind of feel like I want to keep it, especially this shade here, this shade Mont Blanc. Oh my God, that shade is stunning. This here, this shade Tarte is like a duochrome, so it's like white looking, but when you put it on the eye, it's pink. This shade looks really light, but it applies so beautifully. Crepes is stunning. Creme is stunning. Puffs is stunning. I surprisingly don't use custard or macarons very much, but the other shades, oh, this is just such a beautiful palette. This is the Warrior 2, and this is the one that is the all matte. And this is one that I think I was originally going to, oh no, is this cracked? Oh yeah, it cracked a bit. My black, that's a weird way that it cracked down the middle. I don't know how that happened, but of course now I have black eyeshadow on my finger, and this is Juvia's Place, so this is pigmented. Look at that stain. This is after me wiping my finger, by the way. I think I'm gonna keep this. The reason why, I originally was gonna declutter it, but I think now that I'm getting rid of my soft glam, the tones in here are kind of similar, and I use these in similar ways, so I feel, or use both palettes in similar ways. So I feel like since I'm getting rid of that one, I can maybe get a little more use out of this one. Because oftentimes with soft glam, I don't use the shimmers in soft glam that much. It's mostly just the mattes and the brownie tones, those really beautiful rich mattes, and these are very similar. So I think I'm going to keep this one since I'm getting rid of soft glam. Warrior, the original Warrior, OG Warrior. I have tried to declutter this a couple times, and every single time I talk myself out of it, and I think that's just going to be another one of those times, guys. I don't know. I don't know. Again, like I said, I had already done a pretty decent declutter of my Juvia's Place palettes, and I don't necessarily want to declutter anymore, but I do want to sort of like take a stock of things and, you know, sort of figure it out and see if my feeling has changed at all. So that's why I'm going through them with you guys here. This is the Saharan 2. This palette, this one I would say is a pretty curated color story for them, and these tones, this red, the metallics in this palette are stunning on the eye. OMG. So yeah, I'm not going anywhere. And then the Magic Mini, there's the big version of this, which always turned me off, but I do like the mini, and this is one I don't feel like there's a curated color story, but I don't mind because this has some of my favorite tones in it. Like this shade here by Yara Buzo. I think this is Yabe. I hope I'm saying that right. Yajide. Excuse me, I'm reading it upside down. Ife, like these, I have created one of my all-time favorite eye looks just with this palette, and it is stunning. Again, I tend to stick in this area here. This is sort of my happy place with this palette. But I'm okay with keeping this palette for those shades. It's half the palette, you know? That's a good ratio for me. So yeah, this one will stay. Oh my God, guys, my finger is still stained from that shadow. Okay. Here we go. Dun, 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 dun. My Melt Cosmetics palettes. This is all of them. Yeah, I don't think anything's getting decluttered. I will show you what I have. Maybe I'll change my mind, but I don't really think so, but we'll see. So this is Gemini 2. She looks like this. I've talked about this palette. I talked about how I probably, if I was doing things differently, I did a video like if it was originally started by one other creator, but I had originally seen it from Betty Bean, basically revisiting palettes and seeing if you would repurchase them now. For me, if I was just looking at this palette now, no. The reason why is because a lot of these types of shades, my eyes are very sensitive to, and I often get irritation from. So like these three here, and even Schmoo to a certain extent. So for me, it's always a crapshoot when palettes have these tones. I don't hate it. I don't hate these tones, but my eyes don't like these tones. And so part of me, it's like, okay, that's half the palette. But at the same time, I don't know. I love this. I love Schmood. I really want to give Schmood another chance and see if it's fine without, because I had these other tones on my eye as well. And I'm wondering if that's why Schmood was bothering my eye. But I just can't bring myself to get rid of this. I might change my mind. Give me another like 6 months or so and let me see how I feel. But As of now, I will not be partying with this. And I have two other, I just thought about it, I have other melt products that I always forget to show you guys, and those might actually be getting decluttered. Give me a second. Let's go through these and then you'll see what I'm talking about. We have the 420 palette. This palette is much maligned. A lot of people don't like this palette. I haven't had any issues with this palette. I love this color story. This color story is chef's kiss. I really want Melt to get back to doing fun things like this. I feel like they've lost their way a bit as far as what they've been releasing, and I want them to get back to being, you know, the cool kids again. But you know, we can't be the cool kids forever, so you know, maybe that time has passed. I don't know. I have not had any issues with this palette. I know a couple of people have, and I also know other people who love it as much as I do, so I like this palette. I think it's a beautiful color story. I haven't had any issues with the formula. Morte. I mean, really, you think this is going somewhere? No, it's not. Darn near perfect color story. Like, this is, I mean, come on. Come on. Iconic. This is iconic. Another iconic. This one. This one is old as Methuselah. I bought this right around the time that I bought my Soft Glam, and I'm getting rid of my Soft Glam because it's too old. But I'm not getting rid of this one. Logic, yeah, I know. The logic is loose, but I don't care. I might eventually repurchase this. I really like the OG packaging. It has new packaging now, but I don't know. I probably will eventually purchase this, but I'm not doing that now, so I'm going to hold on to my old one. Let's do this one. This is Vita, which is the other part of the Morte palette. Beautiful. You can't get this anymore. Do I use this very often? No. Am I getting rid of it? No. And Mary Jane. And already I can see little pieces of things. This palette is beautiful, but you know what I hate about this palette? The freaking packaging, man. All of those little sequiny things are falling out. I don't know why they thought to do this. It's so tacky and annoying to use. But this color story though, chef's kiss. Some people had issues with the metallics in this. I mean, Melt's metallics are hit or miss, and that's always been the case, and I feel like if you buy in their palettes, you kind of got to go into it knowing that. These are just very flaky and glittery, and if you go into it knowing that and you use the appropriate brushes and maybe some glitter glue, you'll be fine. It's not that big of a deal. I actually really like this palette. Hate the packaging, love the palette. Can you guys see those sequin here? Look at this, it's ridiculous. All right, so look at this. What's this, guys? What's this? Is this a melt stack? What? Is this multiple melt stacks? What? Yes, it is. So first up we have, make sure I have everything here, the blueprint stack. This is the OG. Before the blueprint palette, this was what you got. You got the blueprint stack. I have not parted with this. I haven't used it in ages, but I have not parted with this. I'm thinking if I want to, I'm trying to decide if I want to just get the palette and do away with the stack. But also, why get rid of the stack? There's nothing wrong with it. So it's a bit of a conundrum, guys. It's just, the main issue that I have with these is that because it's in the stack, I forget that I have them. It's why I completely forgot to show them in my last Declutter series, because I literally forgot about them. They were tucked away, and when I went to like put things back and reorganize, I was like, oh yeah, those. So part of me wants to do away with them just to be done with them. Oh, got powder all over this one. This one is the and also they collect, guys, and they collect everything. Like everything attracts to them. They're not very nice to like store. This is the She's and Barties stack, baby. And there's now a She's and Parties palette, so, and it's extended. So that's the She's and Parties stack. I'm tempted to get rid of this because I just don't use it anymore. Yeah, so I'm thinking I'm probably gonna get rid of this one, even though she's super cute. But I haven't used this in forever, and I don't even know if I want to buy the palette. So I think I'm gonna do away with this one. Oh, gosh. Okay. Then we have this bad boy, and this is a hodgepodge, a bit of a hodgepodge. So first up we have the, what do we call this one? What is this one called? The baby face, baby cakes palette or stack. Remember this one? Do you guys remember this one? This is the one that they did not make. OMG, guys, look what I just did. Well, that makes me, oh my God, that shade though. I was about to get rid of this. Look at that. Oh, I'm gonna repress that, but oh my God, now I'm remembering why I loved this stack so much. This is the one that they did not make a palette for. I can't believe I dug my nail into that. And this is another reason why I hate these, because the magnets on these are so strong. This is not the only one that I've done this to, and it makes me sad because they're just not very fun to use or store. So this big mess is the baby cakes stack that I'm now gonna have to clean up. I'm gonna hold on to this for now. I don't know if they're ever gonna get around to making a stack for this, but I can't do away with it. And then I have this random one, which is the shade Rubbish. I bought this in anticipation that they would be restocking the Rust stack, and then they came out with a Rust palette. I might just buy the Rust palette and get rid of this. I haven't decided yet. I'm also taking a sip of Coca-Cola. All right, now let's get into the ColourPop section. Here's where I think I'm going to be a bit brutal, because I've had some of these for a while. I haven't used them in a while. I haven't purchased anything from ColourPop in well over a year, and that's not out of any sort of like specific reasoning. It just has kind of worked out that way, and I'm not like checking for them as much as I used to. I still think that I still see their releases, and there are things that I think are cute, but nothing has made me want to like buy anything, if you know what I mean. Like, I'm just not in a purchasing mode with ColourPop at the moment, and that may change in the future. I'm not dissing the brand or anything. I don't have major issues. I know some people do. I don't have major issues with ColourPop overall. There's certain things they've done that I've not been a fan of, but at the same time, I can say that about most brands, and brands aren't people. So yeah, let's get into it, because this one I think is going to be a bit more of a culling. Even though, look at this. This is what I have left, and I used to have so much more than this. Now, I did take apart all of my like monochromatic 9 pans from them, and I got rid of a lot. I threw all the packaging away, and I got rid of most of the shades, and I kept some in a single shadow palette, which I still have. I am going to be going through my single shadows, because I do actually have single shadows, guys, and I just never show them, and I never talk about them, and I frankly don't really even use them, and I need to sort of like come to some decisions with that. So I think I'm going to make a separate video for that, where I'll go over those things, the single shadows that are in like palettes. I'm not talking about like single potted shadows or anything like that. I mean specifically like just like single shadows. But having said all that, let's get into it. So I am keeping the Tinkerbell palette. I love this color story. I think it's beautiful. The formula's great. I love it. Keeping. I am getting rid of Baroque. I have not used this. This is a situation where I feel like the shades are just too similar in tone on the eye. Like it's very monochromatic, and almost too monochromatic, because once you put them all in the eye, there's really no way to get varying looks in this. It's sort of this is a one note palette. Grandeur. This palette is actually really beautiful, but I think I'm gonna go ahead and get rid of this one as well. I just haven't used it as much. I will say, of the two, I purchased both of these, and I thought this would be the one that I liked the least, but it's the one that I liked the most of the two. But I love the packaging on these so much. Like dark florals, like this whole vibe is just so me. This is my jam, but I don't use these palettes. I will be keeping my Yoda palette. I don't use it that often, but it's super cute and I do love the colors. I will be keeping my Raw Beauty Christie palette. Again, I don't reach for this that much, but I love the color story. This one is gonna hurt. This one is old as hell, and this is to me the best color story that, and the best palette that ColourPop has ever done. They discontinued it. You can't get it anymore. But the last time I tried to use this, the shades just weren't performing like they used to perform. And so I sadly put it away and I was like, this means I have to get rid of it probably. So yeah, this is a good sport palette. You can't get it anymore. It's beautiful, beautiful color story, but I have to say goodbye to her now and it makes me sad, but it's time. The Whatever palette. I really did like this, but I just, like, now that I'm looking at it, like, I loved this palette for so long, but now that I'm looking at it, I don't look at it and go, ooh, I really, like, I don't feel, when I open this up, I don't get excited to use it like I used to, so I think that's kind of a sign I should probably get rid of it. Next to good sport, I would say Lush Life is probably the best color story that ColourPop's ever done. This is from, I think, summer 2021. It is beautiful. I will be keeping this. Stunning palette. I will also be keeping my Limoncello. This blue is stunning. These shades are stunning. This yellow metallic is beautiful. It's just a really fun palette, and it's very spree. And you can do, as you can see, you can do a boring neutral look, or you can go very colorful. I like it. My Disney Mulan. I really liked this palette when I first got it. I used it quite a bit. This red was something that I really loved. This one is kind of a flaky, like, glitter, but yeah, I loved this palette when I first got it. But now I'm just kind of like, meh, you know? It was just a moment in time for me, I think. It was a moment in time, and I think it's time. I think that moment has passed with this palette. I think for me, that moment has passed. My Hocus Pocus. I will be keeping this. I love this color story. I love it. Yeah, I will be keeping this. So yeah, guys, this is what's left of my ColourPop eyeshadow palette collection, which is wild because I used to own so many ColourPop palettes, like so many. And now, like, aside from the single shadows that I kept, like actual physical, like still together palettes, this is all that I have left. That's all that I have left. And I'm okay with that. Like, I'm happy with that. This will be another culling, I think. Oh, let me move this one. This one doesn't go there. Okay, yeah, this will be another culling, I think. I don't own a lot of Urban Decay. I've gotten rid of most of my Urban Decay eyeshadow palette collection, and this is what's left. I haven't reached for any of these in ages, and one of these I keep not decluttering because I love the color story, but again, it's like a color story that I just never reach for, but I'm always so excited when I see it, but I'm like, why don't you use it though? But why don't you use it? And that is the Born to Run palette. Oh my God, look at this. I love this. Why don't I use this? And then I don't use it. And then I'm like, oh my God, but why don't you use it? Also, can I just say, I'm going to show you guys a little something. So this is the Urban Decay Beached palette. And there are multiple shades in here that are in the Born to Run. So Blaze, this is Blaze. There's another one. Is it Wedge or Double Dip? Where is it? There's another one. And maybe I'm losing my mind, but yeah, Blaze and I think Heat Wave. I could be wrong though. But do you see what I mean? Like, it's very, like, the tones, the neutral tones in this are very similar to the tones that are in that one. And so I'm wondering if I keep one or the other. And you know what I mean? Like it might be time to, like, pick one, you know, pick one that you want to keep. And I'm thinking that, oh God, I really do think the Born to Run is probably going to win this one again. Maybe I should put this in a capsule. I really think I should put this in a capsule. The irony is I've used this before. I used this in a, what do you call it? These shades are so similar, but not the same. But look how similar those are. Do you see what I mean? Like, there's such similar things going on here. Like, even, what is this? 16th Street. And then, hold on a second, let me wipe my hand off. So this is 16th Street. And then let's do Ignite. No, it's a little bit different. This one has a bit of more texture to it. And let's do Smog. I was planning on not swatching. Oh, Smog is definitely more like olivey. So what should I do, guys? I'm so confused because I like both of these, but I just don't use them enough. And I'm at a point where it's like, if I'm not using it, if it's just taking up space, it doesn't make sense to keep it. And I know that. Intellectually, I know that. I'm a smart lady. I know these things, but at the same time, I'm also a girl who really loves eyeshadow and really loves color and really loves textures and really loves playing with eyeshadow and looking at eyeshadow and swatching eyeshadow. And so it's like, in this moment, I'm torn. What shall I do? I'm gonna put these aside for a moment. I'm gonna put these aside for a moment and I'm gonna think. I don't think I'm gonna keep both of these. It's gonna be one or the other, but I haven't decided which one will win the battle. Okay, wiped my hands off on my Sonia G microfiber. All right, this is the Jean-Michel Basquiat. This is old as hell, but I have used it not that long ago and it still works really well. It's a beautiful palette, look at that. This to me is more of a collector's thing more than anything else. I bought this secondhand because I wanted it so badly. And I still think this is a beautiful little color story. And I think it's a beautiful little piece of art. And for that reason, I will be keeping it. I don't know if I'll ever use it again though, but I feel like I can't do away with this. It's just so cool. And my Naked Honey palette. This was probably one of my favorite Urban Decay palettes just for formulation. This palette is, I remember when it first came out and I talked so much crap about it. I just didn't think it was that interesting. And I do think this palette has all of the same traps and issues that other palettes from Urban Decay have, specifically their Naked palettes, and that is the matte shades are too light. There's not enough difference in tone and variation. If you have one Urban Decay Naked palette, you've kind of got them all when it comes to the mattes. The only things that change are the metallics. But having said that, the formula in this is stunning. The golds in this, stunning. This is to me their best palette that they've done in a really long while. And just judging by the reviews of the palettes that have been released since, they haven't really done anything this good yet, or since. So I will be keeping this. Even though I don't use it very often, I still like having it. All right, now let's move on to my Lime Crimes. I did a huge culling of my Lime Crimes last year, so I don't have a whole lot. I just have 3. I have these 3 here, and I think this is staying. I know for sure that was never in question, so this one will stay. I'm gonna move this out of the way because it's quite a large palette. And now it comes down to these 2. So this one here is the Venus 2, which I think I will be keeping this. I love this palette. And I was very late to the party with that one, but I do love it. Prelude. So this is Prelude. It's beautiful. Look at that color story, guys. Look at that. But I never use this. And this one kind of got a little bit of hard pan on it. So I think I'm going to do away with Prelude. Even though I think it's beautiful, I just think it's time. I think it's time. I think it's time for it to go. We're going to do my one and only Too Faced palette, which is the OG Gingerbread palette. I will be keeping this. I haven't used it in ages, but I loved this palette so much. Does it still smell? It does. It does smell yummy, guys. I don't know. I loved this palette. I mean, that shade. Oh, snap. Is that a snap? There we go. My hands are a little dry. There we go. Oh, snap. This is like one of my favorite shades in this palette. I don't know why. It's so basic, but it does have that shimmer to it. But this actually shows up on the eye. I don't know how they did that. Hot Toddy. Hot Toddy is stunning. This is a beautiful palette. And this is why, I mean, this is the OG one, guys. This is the one. This was the blueprint for all the 50 million ones that they've come out since. This is the only one I've purchased and the only one I cared about. I have here my 2 Beauty Bay palettes, and I can already tell you that one of them is going, and I can tell you exactly which one it is. So first up is Wilderness. Looks like this. Beautiful. This is the palette that a lot of people, including myself, felt like was, if you hadn't gotten your hands on the Melt Myrte palette, this was a great option. I still feel that way. The formula is not the same. The Melt formula is better. But of course, as you can see, you get more options as far as shades, textures, etc., etc. This palette for me just kind of wasn't as exciting to use as I thought it was going to be when I first purchased it. I don't dislike it. I don't think it's a bad palette. It's just not the one that I thought I was going to fall in love with. Like, I purchased both of these at the same time, and I thought that this one was going to be the one that blew my mind, and it wasn't. So for that reason, I will be decluttering it, because I do have Myrte. So if I want those shades, I have them in Myrte. But the one that blew my mind is Age of Opulence, and this was from their holiday 2021 release. And look at the tones in this, guys. I love this palette. I was not expecting to love this palette as much as I do, because I'm not like a huge, purple used to be my favorite color when I was a little girl, and then I outgrew it and I kind of never looked back. But I do own a lot of purple eyeshadow, which I find very amusing because it's not a color that I reach for very often. But every time I use it, I'm always really happy with the looks that I come up with. But this palette, what I love about this palette is that it marries those rich purples with these really rich jewel tone blues and teals, and then you get all these amazing textures in these metallic formulas. These formulas are like wet, they're like putty, they're like so slick. They can be a bit difficult to work with for that reason, but the payoff on the eye is absolutely stunning. I did a look with this palette for New Year's Eve 2021. If I can remember, I will put a picture up of the look itself, and I was in love with the look I came up with this palette. This is a beautiful, beautiful palette, and so this is the one that blew my mind, and this is the one I will be keeping. Next up, I have my two Colored Rain palettes, and I can just tell you now I'm not getting rid of either one. First up, let's do Queen of Hearts. This was the one that kind of blew everyone away. This is the one that they're really known for. I've had this one forever. I don't think I'm going to be getting rid of it. I'm looking at it now and I'm like, should I get rid of it? I don't know, but I love this palette. I was super late to the game buying this, so I didn't buy this when it first came out. So mine is not like as old as the release itself, but it isn't new, you know? And I'm just wondering if I should move on from this. Ugh. This one, Noble Woman, this shade just, Royal Highness. I love taupes, metallic taupes so much, guys. I don't know. I don't think I'm going to get rid of it. I'm thinking that maybe I'll fill this in like a makeup capsule at some point. Between, you know, I say that because my makeup capsule is a year-long project that I'm doing, and so I have time to throw palettes in, and I usually I'm putting more than one palette in, so maybe I can do that. I'm not going to hold myself to that. But I'm going to give it another 6 months for my mid-year declutter. And if I still haven't used it by then, maybe I'll declutter it. I'm not promising anything, but we'll see. We'll revisit. But I'm not getting rid of it right this second. And then, of course, the best Colored Rain palette to ever exist, and that is the Safari Rain palette. Look at that color. All right. Oh, my God. Oh, my God. This is a stunning palette. I will be keeping this. There's no ifs, ands, or buts about it. I have used this palette so much, and it's just not going anywhere. So there's that. That's that on that, my friends. That's that on that. Now we have the only Artist Couture palette that I now have in my collection. This is my original one, and then I bought the Supreme Mauve, which was hot garbage. And so I decluttered that one. Last declutter that I did. But I kept my Supreme Nudes, and this is one of my favorite neutral, like nudie toned palettes. I love it. I love that the tones are not cold or cool. They're kind of mid-toned, neutral. I love this shade Opulence. The shade Supreme is stunning. Lavish is stunning. Aesthetic is one of my favorite shades in this palette. I love this palette, and yeah, it's a great quality palette. Skip the Supreme Mauves if you're trying to, you want to try one of these palettes. Get Supreme Nudes. It's a great palette. All right, my battery is blinking, so I'm gonna go through these really quickly. All right, so Huda Beauty Jaguar. Love this palette. Not going anywhere. Stunning. Keeping. Beautiful. Nude Pop. I've had this palette forever. I think it's time to do away with it. I've had it. I haven't used it in ages. I said if I didn't use it within the next 6 months to a year that I was going to get rid of it. This makes me sad, but I think it's time. My Charlotte Tilbury Iconics palette. I think I'm going to throw this in a makeup capsule because I still really love this. You can't get it anymore, but I loved this palette when I first got it. I was kind of blown away. These are more like those cream to powder formulas, these mattes here, which I love. And yeah, I'm going to keep this. I really like that palette. This palette here is the palette that I think I will be doing away with. I love the metallics in this, the red shape and I Got You, but I can dupe these in my collection. Like I have palettes that have these shades in them. I don't need this palette for that. So I'm going to do away with that one. My Cutie Platinum. This one, I think I'm going to do away with. I think I'm going to get rid of this one as well, which is kind of shocking to me, but I looked at it and I was like, you know, I'm good. My Tartelette palette, which is kind of dusty for some reason. Is that dust or what is that? You know what? That's probably setting spray. I'll see like little sprinkles. I'm like, what is that? But it's usually setting spray residue. What can I say? This palette is a sleeper. It's a low-key banger. I don't know why. This to me is better. It came out after the Naked Heat. And this is better than Naked Heat in my opinion. I said what I said, don't at me. But yeah, I love this palette. It's not going anywhere. It's very basic, but it works. All right, guys, so these are all the palettes that I have decluttered, which is pretty good. And that brings us to a total of, let's see here, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. This is 17 palettes that I have decluttered. And we have a few that are still in the chopping block. So let's talk about it. Am I keeping these? No, I've decided I'm not keeping these. Am I keeping these? Yes and no. I'm going to get rid of this one and I'm going to keep Born to Run. Born to Run, I can't seem to quit you. I don't know why. So guys, yeah, so there we go. So I have added 3 more palettes to the pile of palettes that I am decluttering. This was a pretty decent and healthy declutter for me. And again, this is only part 1 of my declutter series for my eyeshadow palettes. I have a decent amount more to come. And those are the ones that are going to be more difficult because those are some of my like absolute favorite brands. And I don't know if anything's going to go, but we're going to see. Okay. But yes, see you guys in the next video, the part 2 to this video shortly. Bye now.